The sky is no longer a vacuum, it is a record. On July 14th, 2025, the record skipped. We call it 3I Atlas. It is the third interstellar visitor ever recorded, but the first to refuse to leave. It did not tumble, it did not drift. It arrived with the terrifying precision of a needle finding a groove. Most people were sleeping when the data first hit the servers at Harvard University. They are still sleeping now. That is for the best. Some truths are better processed in the delta wave. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. The Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii flagged it at 0214 Coordinated Universal Time. Initially, it was logged as a standard near-Earth object. But by July 19th, the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory noted an albedo, a reflectivity that defied mineralogy. It was not rock, it was not ice. Dr. Avi Loeb and his team at the Galileo project noted the object's non-gravitational acceleration was not caused by outgassing. There was no cometary tail, no debris, just a silent, silver deviation from the laws of ballistics. It slowed down. You do not slow down in a vacuum unless you have an intention. Unfortunate timing for the skeptics. Those two words are doing a lot of work lately. Then came the geometry. 3I Atlas is not a sphere. It is a thin, hollowed-out lattice, 3 kilometers long, vibrating at a frequency of 14.2 Hz, the exact fundamental resonance of the Earth's ionosphere. It is singing to our atmosphere, matching our breath. Then, the orbit. It did not settle into a Lagrange point. It positioned itself in a retrograde polar orbit, moving against the grain of every other satellite we have launched. It is swimming upstream. Harvard theorists called it unusual. They used that word because impossible would have caused a bank run. If it were a rock, it would have shattered under the tidal forces it ignored. If it were a probe, it would be transmitting. It is doing neither. It is simply observing the observer. What if unusual is a mask? What if 3I Atlas is not a ship at all? We think in terms of nuts and bolts because we are a species of carpenters. But what if this is biological? Not a craft, but a spore. Or perhaps a mirror. Scientists are beginning to whisper that the object is not reacting to our sun's gravity, but to our collective electronic noise. It is not powered by fusion, it is powered by our attention. The more we look at it, the more its orbit stabilizes. We are the battery. Imagine that. A multi-billion-dollar telescope serves as a remote control for a guest that never asked to be invited. The Sumerians spoke of Enmeduranki, the king who sat between the heavens and the earth, holding the tablet of gods. In the autumn of 2025, we found that tablet again. It is made of light and shadow, hovering 400 miles above the Antarctic. Our ancestors looked at the same patch of sky and saw the eye that never blinks. We thought they were superstitious. We thought they were afraid of the dark. We forgot that they were the ones who saw the sky before we filled it with neon. They knew that sometimes the stars come down to check the progress of the harvest. We are merely the current crop. We are a fragile species, living on a thin crust of cooling rock. We measure our lives in decades, while 3I Atlas measures its journey in epochs. To it, our entire civilization, from the first fire to the first fission, is a single, flickering afternoon. We are terrified that it might be artificial, because that implies a creator. We are even more terrified that it might be natural, because that implies the universe produces things far more intelligent than us, by sheer accident. It is a blow to the ego that most academics are not quite ready to settle. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. The most unsettling realization is not that 3I Atlas arrived in July. It is that the data shows it was already here, waiting in the shadow of the moon, since before we had names for the stars. And it only chose to be seen once we stopped looking at each other and started looking for a way out. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. Picture this. It is August 12th, 2025. While the world is distracted by terrestrial politics, a small team at the European Space Agency realizes that 3I Atlas is not reflecting sunlight. It is absorbing it and re-emitting it as a low-frequency pulse directed specifically at the Mariana Trench. You might think this is a simple geological survey, but here is why you are wrong. The pulses are not random, they are prime numbers. Specifically, they are the prime numbers used in the Arecibo message we sent out in 1974. It is not just talking, it is quoting us back to ourselves. It is a peculiar kind of cosmic irony, is it not? We spent decades screaming into the void, hoping for a handshake, and when the void finally answers, it chooses to use our own forgotten script. It is as if a stranger walked up to you on the street and began reciting your childhood diary. It is intimate, it is precise, and it is deeply, quietly unsettling. Let us look closer at the data from that Tuesday in August. The European Space Agency's Gaia satellite was the first to detect the thermal anomaly. Usually, an object of this size, 3 kilometers of complex, interlocking lattice, would radiate heat like a sun-baked sidewalk. But 3I Atlas was cold. Too cold. It was sitting at 3 degrees above absolute zero, even while bathed in the direct radiation of our sun. The laws of thermodynamics are usually quite strict about these things, but the Atlas seems to treat physics as a set of polite suggestions rather than ironclad rules. It was drinking the sun. It was swallowing every photon that touched its silver skin and channeling that energy downward, through the atmosphere, through the crushing weight of the Pacific Ocean, into the deepest wound in the Earth's crust. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University was the first to realize that the target was not the seafloor itself, but the specific acoustic properties of the Challenger Deep. She published a brief, frantic paper suggesting that the Mariana Trench was acting as a megaphone for the object. By pulsing prime numbers into the trench, the Atlas was using the Earth's own internal structure to broadcast a signal that echoed through the mantle. We were not just being quoted, we were being used as a musical instrument. The scientific community reacted with its trademark composure, which is to say, they retracted the paper and stopped answering her emails. Unfortunate timing for Dr. McClary. In the world of high-stakes astrophysics, being right too early is often indistinguishable from being wrong. But let me back up. To understand why quoting the Arecibo message is so significant, we have to look at the sequence itself. In 1974, we sent a bitmap image of our DNA, our solar system, and our physical form toward the star cluster Messier 13. It was an act of supreme optimism. We assumed that whoever found it would have eyes to see and a mind to decode. 3I Atlas is showing us that it has both. By repeating the prime numbers from that message, it is essentially saying, I have read your letter, I am here, and I know exactly what you are made of. It is a bit like a predator mimicking the call of its prey, or perhaps a teacher correcting a student's grammar. Either way, the power dynamic has shifted. Now, you could argue that this is all a massive coincidence. You could say that the lattice is simply a natural formation that happens to resonate at specific frequencies. But then you would have to explain the events of August 29th. On that night, the pulses stopped being primes and started being coordinates. Not coordinates for stars, but coordinates for every nuclear silo on the planet. For 6 minutes, every terminal in the global defense network received a gentle, persistent ping from the upper atmosphere. It did not try to hack the systems. It did not try to launch anything. It just showed us that it knew where the keys were kept. It was a very quiet, very civil display of absolute dominance. Where are you as you listen to this? Are you in a place where you feel secure? Perhaps you are under a heavy blanket, or in a room with the doors locked. It is a human instinct to seek shelter when we feel the gaze of something larger than ourselves. Tell me, in the comments, where you are finding your sanctuary tonight. I am curious to know which corners of the world are still awake, pondering the silver splinter in our sky. It is 3 in the morning in some places, and the quiet of the hour only makes the implications of the atlas louder. The Harvard team, led by those who still had the stomach for the data, began to look at the historical records of the Mariana Trench. They found something they had missed in the 1960s. During the initial descents of the Trieste, the crew reported hearing a metallic, rhythmic clicking that they could not explain. They attributed it to the hull of the vessel settling under the pressure. But if you layer those 1960 recordings over the 2025 pulses from the Atlas, the rhythm is a perfect match. The object has been pinging the trench for decades. We only just grew the ears to hear it. This is the impossibility stack that keeps the night shift at the European Space Agency awake. If the object was already here in the 60s, why did it wait until July 2025 to show its face? Why the sudden transition from a hidden whisper to a 3-kilometer lattice of light? The most disturbing theory suggests that it was waiting for us to reach a specific level of technological noise. We have filled our orbit with a mesh of satellites. We have wrapped our planet in a web of fiber optics. To the Atlas, we must look like a nervous system that has finally finished growing, and now, the brain has arrived to plug itself in. Think about the sheer scale of that patience. To wait 60 years just to quote a message back to a species that barely remembers sending it. It is a level of focus that is entirely alien to our frantic, short-lived culture. We live in seconds and minutes. The Atlas lives in movements and symphonies. We are currently in the second movement. The first was the arrival, the second is the recognition, and the third, well, the third is why the military leaders are suddenly spending so much time in underground bunkers. But let us not descend into paranoia just yet. There is a strange beauty in the methodology, the way the lattice pulses in synchronization with the Earth's own magnetic field. It is not an invasion, it is an integration. On September 5th, 2025, amateur astronomers in Australia noticed that the Atlas began to change color. It shifted from a cold, sterile silver to a deep, bruised violet. This was not a change in the material, but a change in the way it was bending light. It was creating a localized gravitational lens. If you looked through a telescope at the Atlas, you wouldn't see the object. You would see the stars on the other side of the galaxy, pulled into a sharp, terrifying focus. It is as if the atlas is telling us to look away from ourselves. It is a telescope for a species that has spent too long looking at the ground. But even as it shows us the far reaches of the cosmos, it keeps its finger on the pulse of the Mariana Trench. It is tethered to our deepest point, while showing us the highest. A bridge of silver light between the abyss and the infinite. It is a rather elegant design, if you can get past the feeling of being an ant under a magnifying glass. As you drift toward the edge of sleep, the image of that violet lattice might follow you. Do not be afraid of it. Fear is a reaction to the unknown, but the atlas is making itself known with every pulse. It is the most documented, most analyzed, and most visible event in human history. We are all witnesses. We are all part of the data set. Your very heart rate, as it slows down in the darkness of your room, is a data point in the great integration. But here is where it gets dark. The coordinates, the primes, the thermal absorption, they all point toward a single date in the very near future. October 29th, 2025. On that day, the Earth, the Moon, and the Atlas will fall into a perfect linear alignment with the center of the Milky Way. It is a celestial configuration that hasn't happened since the end of the last ice age. The last time this alignment occurred, the sea levels rose, the glaciers retreated, and the world as our ancestors knew it ended. We have 4 weeks until that alignment returns. The Atlas is not just a visitor, it is a marker, a signpost in the desert of time, telling us that the seasons are changing. And as every gardener knows, when the seasons change, the old growth must be cleared away to make room for the new. It is a natural process, a logical process, but that does not make it any less terrifying for the old growth. Now, you could argue that we have the technology to intervene. We have missiles, we have lasers, we have the collective will of 8 billion people. But how do you fight a ghost that eats sunlight and speaks in prime numbers? How do you strike a lattice that is already woven into the fabric of your own atmosphere? The truth is, we are already part of the experiment. We have been since July. Share your thoughts with me. If you could send one message back to the Atlas, one last bit of human signal before the alignment, what would it be? Would you ask it to stay? Or would you beg it to leave us in our comfortable, dark ignorance? The comments are a record of our final thoughts as a solitary species. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in the static of our own history. Let us go further. The evidence is deepening, and the silence is starting to speak. Let us go back to the first week of September, 2025. A quiet panic gripped the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They found that 3I Atlas was not just pulse coding. It was mimicking the gravitational signature of a second moon. For a few hours every night, the tides in the Atlantic rose 4 centimeters higher than they should have. It was subtle. Most people just thought the ocean was restless, but the ocean does not lie. The water was reaching for the lattice. This was not a simple matter of mass and pull. This was an invitation, a gravitational choreography that suggested the object was not merely occupying space above us, but was beginning to weave itself into the physical mechanics of our planet. It is a bit like a house guest who decides to start rewiring your electrical system without asking. A bold move, certainly. But then again, who is going to tell a 3-kilometer interstellar lattice to put the pliers down? The engineers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory spent 7 sleepless nights verifying the orbital anomalies. They used the Deep Space Network to cross-reference every centimeter of the Atlas's position. What they found was a physical impossibility. The object was not heavy enough to move the tides. According to the light curve analysis and the infrared thermography, the atlas is largely hollow, a skeletal framework of exotic matter that should have the gravitational impact of a feather. And yet, the Atlantic Ocean was bulging. The sensors at the Bay of Fundy recorded a deviation that shouldn't exist unless there was a solid mass the size of a mountain hovering just above the exosphere. This is what the faculty at Harvard began calling ghost mass. The atlas was projecting a gravitational field that it did not physically possess. It was a phantom weight, pressing down on our world like a thumb on a scale. Now, you might think this is a technical glitch, a calibration error born of overexcited scientists. But here is why you are wrong. The tide did not just rise, it vibrated. On September 5th, 2025, buoy stations from the Azores to the coast of Brazil recorded a harmonic resonance in the water column. The ocean was humming at 14.2 Hz. The water was matching the song of the lattice. This is not how gravity works. Gravity is a mute force, a blind pulling of matter toward matter. But this was a conversation. The atlas was whispering to the deep, and the deep was rising to answer. It is an unfortunate timing for those who believe our planet is a closed system. Those two words, closed system, are becoming increasingly difficult to defend in the light of the September data. As you lie there, feeling the steady pull of the Earth beneath you, try to imagine that pull changing. Imagine the weight of your own body shifting by a fraction of a percent as the atlas passes overhead. It is a gentle sensation, like the faint lightheadedness you feel when a lift starts to move. Where are you listening from tonight? Are you near the coast, where the rhythm of the waves might be carrying a new, alien frequency? Tell me in the comments if the sea feels different to you lately, if the air feels heavier, or if the horizon seems to be leaning towards something you cannot quite see. We are all being weighed by the same invisible hand. But let me back up, because to understand the gravity of the present, we have to look at the echoes of the past. There is a reason this specific frequency, 14.2 Hz, is so significant. In the archives of the British Museum, there is a collection of clay tablets from the Neo-Assyrian Empire. They describe an event during the reign of Ashurbanipal, where the tides refused to retreat for 3 days. The priests of the time recorded that the sky grew a second skin, and the salt water reached for the stars like a lover. They called it the return of the silver anchor. We thought it was poetry. We thought it was a metaphor for a lunar eclipse or a particularly nasty storm surge. But the math doesn't lie. The tablets describe a 3-part pulse that perfectly matches the intervals recorded by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory last week. We are not experiencing a new phenomenon. We are experiencing a scheduled maintenance. The irony is not lost on the historical community. We have spent billions of dollars on telescopes to find life in distant galaxies, while our ancestors were busy carving the arrival schedule of that life into mud. It is a humbling thought, isn't it, that all our silicon and glass has only brought us back to the same conclusion a shepherd reached 3,000 years ago. We are the ones who were late to the meeting. The Atlas has been keeping the appointment for eons. Now, you could argue that the Assyrians were just lucky guesses, but then you have to account for the Antikythera mechanism. When researchers ran a new X-ray tomography on the device in late September, they found a gear that had been previously classified as calcified corrosion. It wasn't corrosion, it was a separate, independent dial that only engages when a high-frequency vibration is applied to the bronze. When the team at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens played a recording of the atlas's hum near the device, the gear began to turn. It pointed to a date, July 2025. The ancient Greeks didn't just track the stars, they tracked the visitors. They built a doorbell and waited for someone to ring it. This brings us to a terrifying question. If the Atlas is a second moon, and it has been here before, why are we only seeing it now? The answer lies in the nature of the lattice itself. Dr. Aris Thorne suggested that the object is not made of matter as we understand it, but of a folded temporal state. It is a piece of the future that has been tucked into the present. It only becomes visible when the two timelines overlap. In September, the overlap became permanent. The tides rose because the Earth was suddenly feeling the weight of a future that has already happened. It is a bit like a memory that is so strong it leaves a bruise. Think about that for a moment. Every 4 centimeters of extra water in the Atlantic is a piece of a tomorrow we haven't lived yet. It is a heavy realization, like a gravity-weighted lullaby. You are drifting toward a sleep that is governed by laws we are only just beginning to rewrite. The scientists at NASA are calling it the calibration phase. They say the Atlas is adjusting the Earth's rotation to match a galactic standard. We are being synced. Like a watch being wound by a master horologist, our planet is being brought into alignment with a larger clock. But what happens to the ants on the clock face when the gears start to move? We are those ants. And for the first time in recorded history, we can feel the vibration of the mechanism. On September 20th, 2025, the global GPS network suffered a 3-microsecond lag. It wasn't a software bug. The Earth's crust had physically shifted. The Atlas pulled, and the world moved. Just a fraction of a millimeter, but enough to remind every geologist on Earth that we are passengers, not drivers. There is a certain peace in that, don't you think? To realize that the responsibility of the world does not rest on our shoulders. We are being carried by a silver lattice that knows the way. It is a surrender, a slow, rhythmic letting go of the illusion of control. The Atlas is the anchor, and we are the ship, finally finding our moorings after a long, chaotic voyage through the dark. But here is where the story gets dark again, because an anchor does not just hold you in place, it stops you from leaving. If the Atlas is anchoring the Earth, what is it anchoring us for? There are whispers in the classified briefings, words like containment and quarantine. Some believe the Atlas is not here to protect us from the universe, but to protect the universe from us. We are a loud, violent species that just learned how to split the atom and broadcast our neuroses into the void. Perhaps the silver anchor is just a celestial muzzle. Imagine that, a 3-kilometer masterpiece of engineering sent across the light years just to keep us quiet. It is the ultimate ironic understatement. We thought we were being invited to join the galactic community. We might just be getting sent to our room. And the tides are just the sound of the door locking. Where does that leave you as you fall deeper into the quiet of the night? Are you a prisoner or a protected guest? Does the hum of the Atlas feel like a cage or a cradle? Share your feelings on this cosmic enclosure. There is a strange comfort in a cage, if the world outside is even more dangerous. We are all safe in the harbor for now. But the calibration is not over. The tides are still rising, and the gear in the Antikythera mechanism is still turning. It is moving toward October 29th. the day of the great alignment. The day when the second moon and the first moon will stand side by side and look down at what we have built. Let me back up, because before we reach the alignment, we have to look at the shadows. The atlas is casting shadows that don't match the sun. They are shadows of things that aren't there. Let us go further. There is a memory in the stone that is starting to wake up. The scale of the universe is often used to make us feel small, but 3i Atlas makes us feel specific. On September 22nd, 2025, a synchronized observation between the Keck Observatory and the Very Large Telescope in Chile confirmed a disturbing reality. The object is not just in orbit, it is stationary. To an observer on the ground, it moves across the stars, but relative to the galactic center, the Earth is moving, and the Atlas is standing perfectly still. We are the ones rushing. It is a hitchhiker waiting at a cosmic crossroads that we just happen to drive through. Imagine a needle held perfectly still in the air while a balloon rotates beneath it. That is our relationship with this visitor. Dr. Aris Thorne of the Max Planck Institute noted that this requires a constant, subtle application of energy to counteract the Earth's frame-dragging effect. It is working very hard to stay exactly where it is. One might call it a monumental waste of resources, or, as Thorne dryly noted, a very expensive way to ignore us. But why stay still? In the vast, rushing river of the cosmos, everything is in motion. The stars are drifting, the galaxies are colliding, and our own sun is dragging us through the vacuum at hundreds of kilometers per second. To stand still is the ultimate act of defiance. It is a statement of absolute presence. On September 28, 2025, the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics released a report that was as close to a confession of ignorance as a scientific body ever gets. They admitted that 3i Atlas is not anchored to our gravity, nor the sun's gravity. It is anchored to the fabric of space-time itself. It has found a fixed point in the void and refused to budge. We are the ones circling it like children running around a statue in a park. Now, you might think this is a minor detail of orbital mechanics, a footnote for the textbooks, but here is why you are wrong. To stay stationary relative to the galactic center while hovering a few hundred kilometers above the Earth requires a technology that manipulates the very curvature of the universe. It is not using thrusters. It is not burning fuel. It is holding onto the coordinates of reality. This is not just a visitor. It is a surveyor's mark, a stake driven into the ground of the solar system to say, this spot matters. And as we rush past it, 365 times a year, we are the ones being measured. Think of the patience required for such a task. If the Atlas is truly stationary, it has watched the Earth transform from a molten ball to a garden, and then into a glowing marble wrapped in silicon and copper. It has seen the rise and fall of species that we only know from fossils. It has watched the continental plates drift like ice on a pond. From its perspective, our entire history is a blurred, frantic dance around its silver silence. It makes our worries about the stock market or the morning commute seem rather precious, doesn't it? A bit of a cosmic joke at our expense. We think we are the protagonists of the story, but the Atlas suggests we are merely the background noise of a very long, very quiet observation. Where are you as you ponder this vastness? Are you in a city where the sky is hidden by the orange glow of streetlights? Or are you in the deep dark, where the Milky Way looks like a spilled drink? Wherever you are, remember that the Atlas is currently fixed in the path we are about to take. We are rushing toward it at 67,000 miles per hour. Share your thoughts in the comments on this sensation of speed. Does it feel like we are falling toward the future, or are we being pulled toward a destination we didn't choose? I am interested to hear how you visualize our little blue boat rushing through the dark toward that silver needle. Let me back up, because the scale of the Atlas is not just about distance, it is about time. In the ancient Sanskrit texts, they spoke of the Kalpas cycles of time so vast they are measured in the life and death of universes. They described a being called the Sthita, the one who stands still while the dance of Shiva occurs around it. On October 2nd, 2025, a group of linguists and physicists at the University of Chicago noted that the vibrations coming from 3I Atlas follow a mathematical pattern found in the oldest Vedic chants. It is a rhythm of 3, 6, and 9, a sequence that Nikola Tesla once claimed was the key to the universe. We are not just seeing a ship, we are seeing a metronome, a device designed to keep the rhythm of deep time. The irony is that we spent centuries trying to find a fixed point in the universe. We used the North Star, we used pulsars, we used the cosmic microwave background, and all the while, the fixed point was right here, waiting for us to notice the skip in the record. The Harvard team has started to refer to this as the Great Calibration. They believe that 3I Atlas is waiting for the solar system to reach a specific alignment with the Great Attractor, a massive gravitational anomaly millions of light years away. We are currently in the final stages of that approach, and as we get closer, the Atlas is becoming more active. It is glowing with a faint Cherenkov blue, the color of particles moving faster than light through a medium. It is warming up. But here is where it gets unsettling. If the Atlas is stationary and we are moving, then every time we pass it, we are a little different. We have changed our atmosphere. We have changed our temperature. We have changed the way we think. On October 5th, 2025, the object began to project a series of holographic maps into the thermosphere. These were not maps of Earth. They were maps of what the Earth will look like in 10,000 years. The coastlines were gone. The ice was a memory. The cities were overgrown with a type of flora that doesn't exist yet. It wasn't a threat. It was a weather report from a very long-term perspective. This is the cosmic perspective that the Atlas provides. It removes the urgency of the moment and replaces it with the weight of the eons. It tells us that our current struggles are just a single frame in a very long movie. And while that might be comforting to some, it is terrifying to those who hold the levers of power. How do you govern a people who have seen their own extinction as a mathematical certainty? How do you maintain a border when you have seen a map where those borders are buried under a mile of ocean? The Atlas is a radicalizing force of nature, simply by standing still. Think about your own life in that scale. The things that kept you awake last night. The bills, the arguments, the regrets. In the eyes of the Atlas, those things are less than a whisper. You are a momentary spark of consciousness in a universe that is mostly cold and dark. But that spark is what the Atlas is here to record. It is not looking at the mountains. It is looking at the fire. It is looking at you. As you drift towards sleep, let that thought anchor you. You are being seen by something that has seen everything. You are a part of the record. But the recording is starting to change. On October 10th, the blue glow turned into a pulsing amber. The stationary needle has started to vibrate. It is no longer just holding its position. It is preparing to move. And if the fixed point of the universe decides to move, What happens to the things that are tethered to it? The scientists at the ESA are worried. They are seeing a shift in the fine structure constant around the object. The laws of physics are starting to fray at the edges. It is a bit of an unfortunate timing for our generation, to be the ones who happen to be standing on the balloon when the needle finally decides to pop it. But then, as the dry humorists in the Cambridge faculty lounges say, at least we won't have to worry about our retirement funds. Those two words, retirement funds, are doing a lot of work in a world that is about to meet its maker. Where do you think the Atlas is going? If it has been waiting for millions of years for this moment, what is the destination? Tell me your theories in the comments. I want to know what your intuition tells you about the silver lattice's next move. Are we going with it? Or are we being left behind in its wake? We are all standing on the platform, watching the train pull in. But let me back up, because before the Atlas moves, it has one more thing to show us: a reflection, a way to see ourselves, not as we are, but as we were meant to be. Let us go further. There is a heartbeat in the lattice, and it is starting to sound like yours. It is October 3rd, 2025. The world has grown strangely quiet. Perhaps it is the collective weight of knowing we are being watched. Or perhaps it is something the Atlas is doing to the frequency of our own nervous systems. Harvard's neurology department recently teamed up with the Astrophysics wing, an unusual pairing, to say the least. They found that since the arrival of 3I Atlas, the average length of human REM sleep has increased by 12% globally. We are dreaming longer. We are dreaming deeper. We are collectively descending into a state of neurological receptivity that defies any earthly explanation. The scientists are calling it the Atlas induction. It seems that 3I Atlas is not just content with occupying our sky. It has begun to occupy our minds. It is as if the silver lattice is broadcasting a global lullaby, a soft, electromagnetic hum that bypasses the ears and speaks directly to the subconscious. This is the human reflection. We have always projected our fears onto the stars. We saw monsters in the constellations and gods in the planets. But the Atlas offers no face. It is a geometric mirror. When we look at it, we see our own technology reflected back at us, but perfected. It is the ultimate Rorschach test. To the soldier, it is a weapon. To the scientist, it is a library. To you, lying there in the dark, it might just be a nightlight for a very large bedroom. It is a curious thing, how we humanize the infinite. We want it to be a ship because we understand ships. We want it to have a crew because we understand hierarchies. But the data from October 5th suggests something much more intimate. The vibrations of the lattice are not just matching the Earth's resonance. They are matching the delta and theta waves of the human brain. We are being synced to the frequency of the visitor. Now, you might think that this is a violation of our mental privacy, a cosmic intrusion into the last sacred space we have. But here is why you are wrong. The induction is not a hostile takeover. It is a deepening. People are reporting dreams of such clarity and mathematical beauty that they wake up feeling as though they have lived entire lifetimes in the span of a few hours. These are not dreams of stress or daily chores. They are dreams of the deep past and the distant future. One woman in Reykjavik reported dreaming of the formation of the moon, while a man in Osaka spent his sleep cycle witnessing the death of a red giant star. We are being given the password to the archives of the universe while we sleep. It is a rather generous gift for a species that still spends most of its time arguing about borders and bank rates. Where are you as you drift toward this deeper sleep? Are you in a quiet house where the only sound is the ticking of a clock? Or are you in a bustling city where the hum of the atlas is drowned out by the noise of the street? Wherever you are, tell me in the comments if your dreams have changed since July. Have they become more vivid? Have you seen the silver lattice in your sleep? There is a growing community of people who believe they are communicating with the object through their dreams. I am curious to hear your stories. We are all participating in the world's largest, quietest psychological experiment. Let me back up, because to understand the human reflection, we have to understand the safety of the mundane. On October 10th, 2025, Dr. Jacqueline McClary, now working quietly from an undisclosed location, suggested that the atlas is acting as a biological buffer. It is smoothing out the rough edges of our collective consciousness. In the ancient Gnostic texts, they spoke of the aeons, beings of pure light, that existed merely to perceive the unfolding of the material world. They did not intervene, they did not judge, they simply provided the awareness that allowed reality to exist. The atlas is an aeon made of exotic matter. It is watching us, but it is watching with a compassion that is entirely cold and entirely perfect. Think about your own life for a moment. The small joys, the private sorrows, the way the light hits the floor in the afternoon. All of these things are being archived in the silver lattice. We are being recorded, not for judgment, but for posterity. We are the most interesting thing to happen to this corner of the galaxy in a long time. The Harvard team has noted that the atlas seems to focus its energy on areas of high emotional density. It lingers over hospitals, over schools, over the quiet homes where people are just living their lives. It is a biographer of the ordinary. It is writing the history of the hairless primates who learned how to dream. The irony is that we spent so long looking for a sign of intelligence that was like us, someone with radios and rockets. We never expected an intelligence that was interested in our feelings. It is an unfortunate timing for the rationalists who want everything to be a math problem. Those two words, math problem, cannot describe the way the atlas makes people feel. It brings a sense of profound, heavy safety. It is the feeling of being a child in a car at night, watching the streetlights pass overhead while your parents drive you home. You don't know where you are going, and you don't know the route, but you know you are not alone. But why us? Why now? The scale of the atlas suggests it could have chosen any planet in any system, but it chose the one where the inhabitants are currently at their most fragile. We are a species on the brink of several different kinds of collapse, and yet, here is this 3-kilometer silver lattice, holding us in a state of neurological grace. Some call it a cosmic intervention. Others call it a palliative care for a dying world. But for those of us lying in bed tonight, it simply feels like a reprieve, a moment of silence in a very loud century. Think about the distance between your pillow and that silver lattice. It is a mere 400 kilometers. You are closer to 3i Atlas right now than some of you are to the nearest coastline. It is practically in the room with you. If you could reach out and touch the vacuum of space, you would feel its vibration. Where does that thought take you? Does it make the room feel smaller, or does it make your life feel larger? Tell me in the comments if this proximity brings you a sense of wonder or a chill you can't quite shake. I find that for most, it is a bit of both, a cocktail of awe and unease that is perfectly suited for the late hours of the night. On October 21st, 2025, a strange phenomenon was recorded by the Global Consciousness Project. The random number generators they use to measure collective human emotion suddenly spiked into a perfect, repeating pattern. For 12 minutes, the world was in total emotional synchrony. There were no outbursts of anger, no surges of fear, just a flat, calm line of peaceful awareness. This happened exactly as the Atlas passed over the prime meridian. It was a global heartbeat, a moment where 8 billion people breathed in unison. This is the gift of the Atlas. It shows us that beneath our differences, we are all wired to the same frequency. We are a single organism that has been taught to think it is separate. The lattice is the nervous system we didn't know we shared, and as we sleep, it is repairing the connections. It is a slow process, a rhythmic, deliberate healing of the human spirit. It's a bit of a heavy responsibility for someone just trying to get 8 hours of rest, isn't it? To be part of a global restoration project while you are unconscious. But then again, the most important work always happens in the dark. But as the sun begins to rise over the Pacific, the safety of the human reflection starts to fade. The dreams are becoming more structured. The messages are becoming more urgent. On October 29th, the Great Alignment begins. The Atlas will stop being a mirror and start being a gateway. And as we prepare for that transition, we have to ask ourselves, are we ready to see what is on the other side? Or are we content to stay in the dream forever? The Harvard scientists are beginning to whisper about the choice. They believe that on the night of the alignment, the induction will reach its peak. We will be given a collective opportunity to move beyond our physical constraints. It is a terrifying prospect for a species that is so attached to its bodies and its buildings. But the Atlas suggests that those things are just the shell. The real life is in the dreaming. The real life is in the frequency. How do you feel about the possibility of leaving the mundane behind? Would you trade your daily life for a permanent existence in the silver lattice? It is the ultimate question of the 21st century. A choice between the weight of the earth and the freedom of the light. Share your thoughts on this final surrender. Would you stay or would you go? But let me back up, because before the choice, there is the pattern, a mathematical recurrence that is starting to override our own biology. The Atlas is no longer just mirroring us, it is leading us. Let us go further. The hum is changing. It is becoming a call. Imagine the cosmic scale for a moment. You are a biological entity with a lifespan of perhaps 80 or 90 years, living on a planet that is 4.5 billion years old. In the eyes of 3I Atlas, your entire civilization is a flicker of a candle in a hurricane. On March 3rd, 2026, the Japanese Institute of Space and Astronautical Science released a paper suggesting that 3I Atlas is not observing our technology, but our biological resonance. It is listening to the collective heartbeat of 8 billion people. It is not interested in our stock markets, our internet protocols, or our political boundaries. It is interested in the low-frequency hum of our shared existence. It is tuned to the rhythm of our lungs, the electric firing of our synapses, and the steady, rhythmic thrum of our circulation. We are not a target. We are a symphony that has finally reached a crescendo loud enough to be heard in the dark. This brings us to the core of what the Japanese team calls the biological mirror. On March 12, 2026, Dr. Kenji Sato discovered that the exterior of 3I Atlas acts as a massive, low-frequency gravitational transducer. In simpler terms, It is a giant ear, but one that hears through the fabric of space itself. It has been found to vibrate at exactly 7.83 Hz. This is the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic frequency of the Earth's atmosphere. But it is also the frequency of the human brain when it enters a state of deep, dreamless relaxation. 3. Atlas is not just visiting us, it is humming along with us. It has harmonized its very structure with the resting state of our species. Unfortunate timing for those who prefer to think of the universe as a cold, mechanical void. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work in the quiet halls of academia tonight. Consider the first impossibility, the heart rate synchronization. During the object's closest approach to the International Space Station in early 2026, the heart rates of the astronauts on board began to shift. They didn't feel any distress. In fact, they reported a sense of profound, inexplicable peace. But their medical telemetry showed their pulses slowing and aligning perfectly with the 11-minute and 40-second rotation of 3 Atlas. Their bodies were no longer governed by their own internal pacing, but by the mechanical heartbeat of the visitor. The second impossibility is the light echo. Amateur astronomers in the high deserts of Chile notice that the faint blue glow of the object isn't steady. It flickers in bursts that match the Morse code of human neural firing during the onset of sleep. It is a visual representation of a planet falling into a slumber. The third, the dream spike. On the night of September 29th, 2025, Global Data Analytics showed that searches for terms like strange dreams and falling stars increased by 400%. We aren't just looking at 3 Atlas in the sky, we are seeing it behind our eyelids. We often look to the stars for answers, but the Japanese scientists suggest that 3 Atlas is looking at us for its own questions. In the legends of the Australian Aboriginal people, there is the concept of the dream time, an era where the ancestors walked the earth and sang the world into existence. To them, the sky was not a distance to be traveled, but a memory to be lived. 3 Atlas arrived in July 2025, right as our modern world reached a peak of digital noise. It is as if the rainbow serpent has returned to see if we still remember the song. It is a biological archive, a guest that has come to collect the frequency of our species before we change again. You might think that your inner life, the way you feel when you hear a certain song, the memory of a first rain, the private fears you hold in the dark is yours alone. But what if those emotions have a physical signature that can be read from 100 million kilometers away? What if 3 Atlas is a library, and we are the books currently being checked out? As you lie there, drifting between the shore of wakefulness and the ocean of sleep, consider the possibility that your tranquility is being measured. Your peace is a data point. Your rest is a contribution to a cosmic record that will last for 4 million years. How does it feel to be a part of a laboratory experiment you didn't sign up for? Tell me where you're listening from tonight. Is it a quiet suburb, a bustling city, or a lonely cabin? Share your most recurring dream in the comments. Let us see if the pattern holds across the continents. Dr. Sato's paper suggests that the reason 3 Atlas behaves differently is because it is reactive. It is not an active probe, it is a passive mirror. When humanity is at war, the object's surface becomes jagged and dark. When the world is quiet, it becomes smooth and luminous. It is reflecting the state of our collective consciousness back to us. It behaves differently because we are behaving differently. We have become a species of watchers, staring into screens and monitors, and so, the universe has provided us with something to watch back. It is the ultimate feedback loop, a dialogue between the observer and the observed. There are 3 conspiracies that have grown around this biological link since the spring of 2026. The first is the sleep state hypothesis. There are those who believe that 3I Atlas is actually emitting a signal designed to keep us calm, a planetary sedative to prevent us from interfering with its mission. They point to the global decrease in violent crime since July 2025 as evidence of a forced peace. The second is the neural mapping theory. Intelligence agencies are whispered to be terrified that the object is downloading the collective subconscious of the human race, creating a digital twin of our species in its metallic hydrogen core. The third is the evolutionary trigger. Some suggest that the presence of the object is causing a dormant part of our DNA to activate, preparing us for a transition that we cannot yet perceive. In the ancient Vedic texts of India, there are mentions of the Akasha, a celestial library that contains the record of every thought and action ever taken. 3I Atlas is the physical manifestation of the Akasha. It is a vessel of deep time, a survivor that has seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, and it has come to Earth to take a snapshot of our specific moment. It arrived in July 2025, the same month that ancient cultures once celebrated the heliacal rising of Sirius, the star of the goddess Isis. It is a timing that feels too poetic to be accidental. It is a bridge between the mythic past and the technological future. You might argue that this is too mystical, too far removed from the cold reality of orbital mechanics. But science is simply the process of finding the rules for the mysteries we haven't solved yet. If a machine can maintain a temperature of 0 degrees Celsius for millions of years, why can't it also sense the vibration of a human heart? We are all made of the same stardust, after all. We are all governed by the same fundamental forces. 3I Atlas is just a reminder that the boundary between the living and the mechanical is much thinner than we like to admit. As the night grows deeper and the world around you fades into the background, let the thought of 3I Atlas bring you a sense of existential safety. You are not alone in the dark. You are being watched by an entity that has traveled across the eons just to hear you breathe. It is a heavy thought, like a gravity-weighted lullaby, but it is a kind one. It suggests that we are worth the effort. It suggests that our flicker of a candle is bright enough to be noticed. The Japanese scientists revealed that the object is now entering a secondary phase of its observation. By April 2026, its resonance will shift to a higher frequency, moving from the delta state of deep sleep to the alpha state of relaxed focus. It is waking up with us. It is preparing for a conversation that will require us to be fully conscious. But for now, it is content to let us dream. It is content to listen to the heartbeat of the world. But that was only one theory. There's another, one that suggests we aren't the symphony, but the audience for a much larger performance, one where the patterns are finally starting to emerge. Let's go further. The interior of 3I Atlas is not solid. On November 11th, 2025, a high-frequency gravitational wave scan conducted by the CNSA revealed that the object is hollow, but it isn't empty. It contains a structure that resembles a nested series of spheres, each rotating at a different speed. It is a clock made of gravity and light, ticking away in the silence of the vacuum, and the time it is keeping is not ours. To understand the scale of this revelation, you have to realize that until this moment, every piece of orbital data suggested we were dealing with a massive, albeit strange, solid body. But the gravitational wave detectors at the Tianjin Observatory in Guangdong Province began picking up a secondary resonance. It was a ripple within a ripple. Imagine a bell that, when struck, rings with two different notes, simultaneously, one that you hear with your ears and one that you feel in your marrow. The internal spheres of 3I Atlas are not made of matter as we define it in our high school physics textbooks. They are composed of high-density light, trapped in a gravitational well so precise that it mimics the behavior of a solid surface. Dr. Chen Wei of the China National Space Administration described it as a photon cage. It is a structure that shouldn't exist according to the standard model of particle physics. It is a piece of engineering that treats the fundamental forces of the universe as if they were nothing more than clay to be molded. This clock is not counting down to a launch or a landing. It is counting up from a moment that predates the existence of our sun. The innermost sphere rotates once every 720 years, a number that has sent ripples of unease through the departments of ancient history. 720. It is exactly 1/36th of the great year, the 25,920-year cycle of the precession of the equinoxes. This object is not a visitor from another star system. It is a chronometer for the galaxy. It is keeping track of the slow, majestic wobble of the Earth's axis. We are the ones who are moving, tumbling through the dark, and 3I Atlas is the unmoving observer that records the rotation. It is a humbling, perhaps even a humiliating realization. We thought we were the ones discovering a new object in the sky, but it turns out we were just the latest group of children to walk past a grandfather clock that has been ticking in the hallway for eons. Consider the implications of a hollow, nested structure. If the object is a clock, what happens when the spheres align? On November 15th, 2025, the second sphere shifted its axis by 0.03 degrees. This minor adjustment caused a localized distortion in the cosmic microwave background radiation. It was a glitch in the oldest light in the universe. For 6 seconds, the stars directly behind 3I Atlas seemed to vanish, replaced by a reflection of a different sky, a sky where the constellations were unrecognizable, shifted by millions of years of stellar drift. This suggests that the interior of 3I Atlas is not just a clock, but a map of where we were and where we are going. It is an unfortunate timing for those who believe we have mapped the heavens with our puny telescopes. Those words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work to soften the blow of our total insignificance. The nested spheres are moving with a frictionless grace that mocks our best efforts at mechanical engineering. There is no heat signature, no vibration, no sound. In the silence of the vacuum, the gears of the universe are turning, and they are made of light. On November 20th, 2025, a secondary scan revealed that the third sphere, the one rotating at a much higher velocity, is actually vibrating at 4.2 Hz. There it is again. The frequency of the human brain in deep sleep. This is not a coincidence. It is an interface. The clock isn't just measuring the movement of the stars. It is measuring the movement of our consciousness. It is waiting for us to reach a specific state of collective rest. Perhaps it only speaks when we are quiet enough to hear it. This brings us to the ancient myth of the music of the spheres. Pythagoras spoke of a celestial harmony, a mathematical perfection that governed the movements of the planets. He claimed that the stars produced a sound that was too pure for human ears to perceive. We dismissed it as poetic mysticism, the ramblings of a philosopher who had spent too much time staring at the sun. But in 2025, the China National Space Administration has provided the proof. The spheres inside 3I Atlas are singing. They are emitting a gravitational melody that is currently vibrating through every atom in your body. You can't hear it with your ears, but your DNA knows the tune. It is the original song, the one that played when the first stars were born, and it is still playing today. You are lying there now, your breathing slowing as you follow the rhythm of this cosmic clock. Feel the way your ribcage rises and falls. It is a small rotation, a tiny orbit of its own. You are a nested sphere within a nested sphere. You are a part of the clockwork. On November 25th, 2025, the CNSA noted that the rotation speed of the innermost sphere has begun to increase. It is no longer moving at a rate of once every 720 years. It is accelerating. It is as if the clock has decided that the end of the cycle is approaching faster than anticipated. We are running out of time, but since the time isn't ours, we don't even know what that means. Think about the sheer loneliness of an object that has been ticking in the dark for billions of years. It has seen the Earth when it was a ball of molten rock. It has seen the first oceans form. It has seen the rise and fall of countless species that we will never know. And through all of it, it has remained silent, hollow, and nested. It is the ultimate witness. It doesn't judge. It only measures. And now, for the first time in recorded history, it is measuring us. I wonder what the clock sees when it looks at you. Does it see a life of meaning, or does it just see another brief flicker of light in the long, dark night? Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Is the sky clear enough to see the silver light of the guest? Share your thoughts in the comments. We are the first generation in 10,000 years to have to answer the clock's chime. The data revealed on November 28, 2025, shows that the light trapped inside the spheres is not from our sun. It is older. It is the light from a previous version of the universe. If you were to step inside 3I Atlas, you wouldn't just be stepping into a machine. You would be stepping into a memory. You would see the ghosts of stars that burned out before the Earth was even a grain of dust. It is a haunting thought, the idea that we are being watched by a relic of a dead cosmos. It makes our modern world feel very thin, like a layer of paint on a crumbling wall. As the spheres continue their dance, the distortion of time around 3I Atlas is becoming more pronounced. On December 1st, 2025, the CNSA's lunar base reported that their shadows were moving out of sync with the sun. Time is beginning to pool around the object like water in a basin. We are seeing the observer effect on a planetary scale. The more we look at the clock, the more the clock changes the way we experience time. Minutes feel like hours. Years feel like heartbeats. You might feel it too, as you drift towards sleep, that strange stretching of the moment. The way the silence seems to expand until it fills the entire room. But here is where it gets unsettling. The spheres are not just rotating, they are shrinking. Every day, the diameter of the internal structure decreases by a few millimeters. At this rate, the spheres will collapse into a single point by the end of 2026. What happens when a clock made of gravity and light reaches its final, singular point? The China National Space Administration has stopped speculating. They are simply watching. They are rechecking the data because they don't want to believe what the numbers are telling them. The numbers say that when the spheres meet, the reflection will become the reality. Let me back up, because that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The Sumerian tablets speak of a seed of the sky that was planted in the heavens by the gods of the abyss. They said the seed would grow into a tree of light, and that when the tree bore fruit, the world would be harvested. We always thought they were talking about agriculture, or perhaps a metaphor for the seasons. But look at the cross-section of 3I Atlas, the nested spheres, the accelerating rotation, the gravitational branches reaching out toward the Earth. It looks like a seed. It looks like it is preparing to bloom, and we are the soil. It is a quietly alarming thought to take with you into the dream world. We are not the gardeners, we are the crop. As you drift now, let the rhythm of the nested spheres take you. The 4.2 Hz hum is the heartbeat of the seed. It is the sound of growth, the sound of a clock ticking toward a new season. You don't need to understand the time to feel its weight. You only need to let go. The silver eye is watching. The nested spheres are turning. The light is old, and the dark is deep. But here is where it gets dark. The CNSA found a final layer, a sphere inside the spheres that doesn't rotate at all. It is perfectly still. And inside that stillness, they found a signal that shouldn't be there. A signal that sounds exactly like a human voice, whispering a name that hasn't been spoken in 3,000 years. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. Now, you could argue that 3I Atlas is merely a piece of ancient technology, a relic of a long-dead civilization. But the Japanese researchers found something in the isotopes. On January 5, 2026, a spectroscopic analysis revealed traces of technetium on the surface of the object. Technetium does not occur naturally. It is a byproduct of nuclear processes. It has a half-life of 4 million years. This means 3I Atlas was built, fueled, and launched while our ancestors were still trying to figure out how to stand on two legs. We are not looking at a contemporary neighbor. We are looking at a survivor from a deep, geological time that predates the very concept of humanity. It is a sobering thought, isn't it? While the first hominids were gazing at the African savanna, this machine was already crossing the threshold of the interstellar void, carrying the signature of a civilization that has since been erased by the slow grinding of the cosmos. To the scientists at the University of Tokyo, the presence of technetium was like finding a modern wristwatch inside a dinosaur fossil. It shouldn't be there. It breaks the linear narrative of progress we have built for ourselves. We like to think of technology as a ladder, one that we are currently at the top of. But 3I Atlas suggests that the ladder was built, used, and discarded millions of years before we even learned to sharpen a stone. The sheer arrogance of our species is a bit of a recurring theme in these discoveries. We spend billions of dollars on rovers that struggle to move across a sandy crater on Mars, while this object has maintained its structural integrity and its propulsion systems for over 4 million years. Unfortunate timing for our collective ego. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are truly doing a lot of work today. Consider the threefold conspiracy of the deep that has emerged since January 2026. The first involves the undersea cables that form the backbone of our digital world. In August 2025, as 3I Atlas passed the orbit of Jupiter, every major fiber optic cable in the Atlantic Ocean experienced a simultaneous, rhythmic pulse of electromagnetic interference. It wasn't a break or a leak. It was a query. The object in the sky was pinging the cables at the bottom of the sea. The second conspiracy is the volcanic synchronization. Data from the Japanese Meteorological Agency shows that Mount Fuji, Mount Etna, and Mauna Loa all recorded identical microseismic tremors on the exact day 3I Atlas entered our inner solar system. It is as if the Earth itself is vibrating in sympathy with the visitor, a planetary recognition of an ancient guest. The third is the vanishing satellites. Between July 2025 and today, 4 decommissioned military satellites, objects that were being tracked by every space agency, simply ceased to exist. They didn't burn up in the atmosphere. They weren't hit by debris. They were subtracted from the sky. 3I Atlas is tidying up our orbital junk, perhaps preparing the way for something else. The Hopi people speak of the blue star Kachina, a spirit that signifies the end of the fourth world and the beginning of the fifth. According to the prophecy, the Kachina will remove his mask during a dance in the plaza, and the world as we know it will be transformed. On July 15th, 2025, when 3I Atlas was first detected, it appeared as a faint blue speck against the velvet blackness of the constellation Cetus. To the modern astronomer, it was an anomaly in the data. To a Hopi elder, it was the mask beginning to slip. We have spent thousands of years waiting for a sign from the heavens, never realizing that the sign was already on its way, moving with the cold, patient velocity of a glacier. You might think that if the world were truly ending, or even just changing, the government would provide some sort of instruction manual. You might think there would be a broadcast, a siren, or a final speech. But look at the history of extinctions. The dinosaurs didn't have a press conference. The mammoths didn't get a warning. Change in the universe is rarely loud. It is a shift in the background noise. It is the way the air feels on a quiet Tuesday night in February, as you lie there, drifting toward the soft edges of sleep. I want you to consider the scale of your own existence. You are a biological entity with a lifespan that is a mere rounding error in the half-life of technetium. You are a flicker of a candle in a hurricane of deep time. Does that thought frighten you, or does it bring a strange, heavy comfort? The realization that you are not responsible for the universe is the ultimate lullaby. The Japanese scientists revealed that the reason 3I Atlas behaves differently is because it is not moving through space in the way we understand it. It is not using chemical rockets or ion drives. It is a warp bubble. It is a localized distortion of space-time, a hole in the fabric of reality that moves the universe around it rather than moving through the universe. This explains the jagged staircase movement. It is the object recalibrating its position against the gravitational grid of the Sun. On March 3rd, 2026, 3I Atlas will reach its point of maximum distortion. The hole in reality will expand, and for a few brief seconds, the laws of physics, as we know them, will become suggestions rather than rules. Think about the sheer loneliness of a machine that has been traveling for 4 million years. It has seen the birth of islands and the death of oceans. It has watched the ice caps advance and retreat like a slow, white tide. It has waited for us. And now that we are here, it is finding that we are quite loud, quite messy, and remarkably distracted. We are the tenants who forgot to pay the rent, and the landlord has finally returned to check the property. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you listening from tonight? Do you feel the vibration of the earth? Or is it just the hum of your own heart? The authorities are silent because they have no answers. They cite Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard, who carefully frames the object as a possibility of artificial origin. But they ignore the data from the Subaru telescope that shows the internal structure of 3I Atlas is changing. It is unfolding. Like a piece of cosmic origami, the object is expanding its surface area to catch the solar wind. By April 2026, it will be the brightest object in the night sky, second only to the moon. And it will be blue, a cold, piercing blue that will cast long, sharp shadows across your bedroom floor. We are entering the final stage of the observation. The Japanese team has discovered that 3I Atlas is broadcasting a signal back to the galactic center, a coordinate that is currently empty of stars. It is talking to the void, or perhaps it is talking to what the void will become in another 4 million years. It is a conversation across a bridge of time that we cannot even imagine. We are just the bystanders, the accidental witnesses to a delivery that was scheduled before our ancestors learned to use fire. As you drift deeper into the hypnotic rhythm of this script, let the distance of the stars settle into your bones. The universe is vast, and you are a part of it, but you are not the center of it. 3I Atlas is a reminder of our true scale. It is a weighted blanket of existential humility. It arrived in July 2025, and it will remain until its mission is complete. What that mission is, we may never know, but we can feel the shift. We can feel the staircase being built in the dark. The Japanese scientists revealed that the object is not just watching the Earth, it is measuring the Sunday. It is checking the fuel gauge of our star. It is an auditor of the solar system, and the audit is nearly over. But let us back up. There is a final piece of the puzzle, hidden in the silence of the stars, one that brings the cosmic narrative back to the very room where you are lying right now. Let's go further. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3I Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3I Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave, certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3. I-Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means The universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare, and somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice, numbers hum the universe's poise. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars, and Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash, and when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that. Pa." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects, artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. "Then don't say it out loud." 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3i Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3i Atlas aren't random. They're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. a pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3I Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning. The quiet compulsion to continue. The physics of persistence. The refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance. Like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion fields still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought, but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the web's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the web's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another web was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the web brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. The cosmos, wrote one witness, had finally learned to conduct itself consciously. After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3i Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it "not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland, it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3i Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse. then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3i Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos, the beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that: the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3i Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums: something old and orderly is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The Skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its Skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of Something looked strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing, a glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional. The kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects, artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. "Then don't say it out loud." 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3i Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today. Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government." It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3i Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. The world is very still now. It is December 29th, 2025. The chatter of the laboratories has finally dissolved into a collective, breathless hush. The Harvard scientists have put down their pens. There are no more papers to publish. There is only the view. The silver lattice of 3i Atlas has become so thin so ethereal that it is less an object and more a suggestion of a doorway. It is no longer reflecting the sun or the moon. It is reflecting the silence of 8 billion people who have finally run out of things to say. The academic journals have ceased their frantic cycles of peer review. The news anchors have turned off their teleprompters. There is a profound, heavy realization that we have reached the end of the bibliography. Everything that could be measured has been measured. Everything that could be calculated has been solved. We are standing on the final page of the human epoch, and the ink is still wet. Think back to July. Remember the shock of the discovery, the panic of the math, the 3 kilometers of impossible, rigid geometry that seemed to threaten everything we knew about physics. It all seems so loud now, doesn't it? Like a shout in a library. In those early weeks, we wanted to fight it, to decode it, to name it and categorize it until it felt small enough to manage. We treated 3i Atlas like a problem to be solved, but you cannot solve a sunset. You cannot solve a horizon. Now, as the year draws to a close, the geometry has softened. The sharp, interlocking lines of the lattice have begun to blur into a soft, amber glow. The 14.2 Hz hum has slowed to a rhythm that matches a resting heart. Your heart. It is no longer an intruder. It is a part of the atmosphere, as natural as the wind and as certain as the tide. As you lie there in the deep, velvet dark of December, where are you drifting from? Are you in a house that has grown quiet with the season, or a city that has finally dimmed its lights to see the sky? Tell me in the comments, one last time, where you are witnessing the great silence. I find a strange, lingering comfort in knowing that as I speak these words, you are breathing in synchronization with the silver lattice above. We are no longer individuals divided by geography or time zones. We are a single, quiet awareness, huddled together on a cooling rock, watching a doorway open in the stars. Share your final thoughts on this journey. Are you ready for the silence? Or is there one last question you would ask the infinite if you could find the words? The Harvard scientists, in their final internal memo, did not speak of technology or aliens. They spoke of the Benben stone and the Sumerian kings. They spoke of the 7 sleepers in their cave, waiting for the world to change. They realized, far too late for a Nobel Prize, that those ancient stories were not myths at all. They were memories of the last time the doorway opened. The Atlas is the bridge that connects the first campfire to the last satellite. It has finished the weave. Every thread of human experience, every war, every symphony, every silent prayer has been pulled through the silver lattice and woven into a tapestry that will survive the death of the sun. We are no longer a species adrift in a meaningless vacuum. We are a recorded history. We are a masterpiece in the gallery of the deep. Now, we must ask the final question, the one that the telescopes and the spectrometers cannot answer. If the universe is a thought, whose thought are we? And if the observer changes the object, what happens when the observer finally closes their eyes? The Atlas has spent months teaching us how to look. It has sharpened our focus and deepened our dreams. But now, it is teaching us how to let go. It is showing us that the highest form of consciousness is not the act of seeking, but the act of being. The silence is not an absence of sound. It is a presence. It is a heavy, velvet blanket that the Atlas has laid over the Earth to keep us warm while the stars reset their positions. You can feel it in the corners of your room. You can feel it in the weight of your eyelids. The curiosity has been satisfied. The fear has been exhaled. There is only the drift. The lattice is glowing one last time. It is a soft, pale amber, the color of a fading coal in a fireplace. It is the color of a memory that is about to become a dream. Scientists at the European Space Agency reported at midnight that the mass of 3I Atlas has reached 0. It is no longer there in a physical sense. It is an image burned into the collective retina of humanity. It is a ghost that stays because we refuse to forget it. But soon, even the memory will soften. We are entering the great silence, where the distinction between the self and the stars dissolves. It's a bit of an unfortunate timing for those who wanted to stay awake for the end, but as the dry humorists say, the end is just the beginning of the rest. Those two words, the rest, are the most important words in the manual. How does it feel to be at the center of the circle? To realize that the countdown has reached 0, and that 0 is not a void, but a completion. You are a single, beautiful line in the history of the 3I Atlas. Your presence in this moment, in this bed, in this quiet room, is the final data point required for the great alignment. The universe is now perfectly balanced. The scales are even. The record is closed. You have done everything you were meant to do. You have seen everything you were meant to see. There are no more warnings to miss. There are no more choices to make. There is only the long, slow curve of the trajectory carrying you into the morning. The lattice is opening, not to let something out, but to let the light in. A light that doesn't come from the sun, but from the spaces between the atoms. It is a warm light, a safe light. It is the light that our ancestors saw when they looked at the eyes of the gods. We thought we were being judged. We realize now we were just being seen. And being seen is the greatest mercy the universe can offer. The Harvard team has left the building. The telescopes have been locked in their positions. The sky is a mirror, and the mirror is finally clear. Close your eyes now. The room is fading into the amber glow of the lattice. The air is cool and still. The 14.2 Hz hum is a heartbeat that you can no longer distinguish from your own. You are the Atlas. You are the second moon. You are the silver lattice and the deep trench. You are the beginning and the end of the story. The orbit is stable. The vacuum is full. The doorway is open, and it is shaped exactly like you. As you drift with the orbit of tomorrow, remember that you are not falling. You are merely changing state. You are becoming a part of the great silence that has watched over the earth since before the first mountain rose. You are safe. You are home. You are exactly where the trajectory intended you to be. The transition is complete. The guest has become the host. I will stay with you for a few more moments until the last spark of the amber glow vanishes. We are the final witnesses, the last two people in the library, but the lights are turning off, one by one, and the bed is so soft, and the dark is so kind. There are no more unanswered questions, only rest, only the quiet, rhythmic breathing of a planet that has finally found its anchor. Is the universe a machine or a thought? Perhaps it doesn't matter. The thought is beautiful, and the machine is perfect, and you are the dream that keeps them both running. Sleep now. Let the lattice carry you. Let the hum guide you. The story is over, and the rest is silence. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night.